7 years ago, I had my first introduction to the world of music production. I was sitting with my dad on the deck of my grandparents' cottage on a day when the weather wasn't so great, and he had a piece of software open, and I was quite fascinated by that. Little did I know later that that was going to be a very, very crucial moment in my life, as music would be what kind of took over my life. At that point, I didn't play an instrument, I didn't have any kind of knowledge, but over a lot of time, long time, I would slowly learn the ropes of how to do all these things by myself with a little help from my father. Now, for a long time, music became a casual hobby because, I don't think any 10-year-old is really out questing to become a music producer at that age, but as time passed, I realized that music had become somewhat of an emotional outlet for me. When I was angry, I'd write music. When I was sad, I'd write music. When I went through my first breakup, I wrote music. I will say I will always treasure the nights I had sitting with my father when I still didn't know a thing about what I was doing, just sitting on my laptop while he's sitting on his, and we're both showing each other what we're writing, and his ideas are just so superior to mine with more polish. And now, about 7 years later, I'm 17, and this is all I do. I don't leave my bedroom. All I do is write music. It's kind of sad, really. I put up my first proper release 4 years ago with a friend from school and a random dude I met on Discord. Now that song is at 5,000 streams on Spotify, and that boggles my mind. I don't know how that works, guys. I don't know, someone tell me. Point is, it's been a long time since then, and what I've been writing has changed a lot. This project that I've been working on for over 6 months now, and as I sit here writing this, it's about 95% done. And I think that's probably the perfect time to show everybody kind of how this works, the whole process. So that's what I'm gonna do. So without further rambling of me, I swear to God, I had less problems with the Miko Manhattan project than I had recording this. Alright, take 3. So basically, Are You Still There? It is a project I've been working on for 6+ months, and most of the collaborations are just me working with friends of mine or like friends of friends. Me and Find Me have worked together multiple times before. I've been trying to work with Max Brenti forever. Good guy. I love you, Max. And yeah, I would love to give a little bit of backstory behind everything, but really it's just I write an instrumental and then I send it off to somebody. And if they like it, maybe they'll use it. If not, then they don't. Probably the only one with actual backstory is Angel, which is actually a flip of a Max Brenti track of the same name. Basically, he did the song and was like, hey, do you want to do something with these vocals? And I was like, sure. And then he said I could release it as its own thing. So yeah, that's also on here. As for everybody, obviously they do their own stuff. You can go check them out. I'll link them below or whatever. And yeah, I guess now I will get into the more in-depth things. I'm not good at planning these things, am I? I'm just kind of going. Ugh. Alright, so basically, the way this track started out, as most of my tracks do, was I took a little arpeggio here. It'll usually be either chords or a melody or an arpeggio. In this case, it was this. And I opened up the MIDI, and I just took the pencil tool and I wrote it in like that. Whatever. That's just kind of how I tend to do my process. I usually start with chords or an arpeggio or something, and I remember the process for this project really well, actually. So it started with the little low one, and then transitions into the higher octave, and then the even higher octave later. So the way that's done is through a synth, which is actually an emulation of a hardware synth from, I want to say, the 90s, but I don't actually know. It's Arturia's Prophet 5. And it's got everything here the real synth would have, including a little effects box, which I guess the real synth didn't have. But you get my point. It's got the cutoff, which is where the frequencies cut off, the attack, how long it takes to come in, the decay, self-explanatory, the sustain, how much the note sustains while you're holding it, and then the oscillators here, which make the noises. You see this one's running a square wave, this one's running a triangle wave. And then it's running through an analog delay here, which makes it's not making any noise. Nice. It's fine, it just does that sometimes. Sometimes things just decide not to work, and I've come to accept that. So yeah, from there, once I had the arpeggios down, I knew I was going to want an 808 next with some drums. Now I'll get into the 808 first. Basically, the way my 808s are done is I throw a single wave sample into a sampler, which is probably the easy way to do it. You can see the original wave there. Quite a long one, but then I have it set so I can play that at whatever pitch I want. And the one right here, as opposed to the one right here, is being run through... oh, right, forgot to mention. I run all of my 808s through an effect called Drive Knob, which does a little bit of distortion, a little bit of imaging to make it wider. Yeah, just basic stuff like that. I keep hitting my glasses off my mic, I'm so sorry. And then next from that, I have an EQ, which is going to take a second to load, and basically that's just cutting off pretty much all of the high frequencies, so you can kind of see which frequencies are going through and which ones aren't. It's a bit laggy because I have a lot going on right now with the recording, but yeah, so there's that. Just playing a really, really simple little bass line here with the kick on every beat 3. Or kick, snare, what am I saying? And then for the snare itself, I have that running through a reverb, another EQ. Yeah, so an EQ, an aging plugin, which I'm really just using to make the audio quality sound like it's from the 1930s. I'll actually demonstrate that a little bit. So if I'm not running that, I kind of need to close these to see what I'm looking at. So if it's not running through that, if it's not running through that, my audio is kind of glitchy because I'm recording, I'm sorry. But the point is, it makes it sound older. I don't know why my audio is so glitchy. It's just because of the way the recording has to be set up. I'm sorry. And then I have a delay, which is making it do that kind of echo thing in the back. So yeah, as you can see, it's echoing on every 8th note. I just want to talk about, I had not one, but 2 audio interfaces stop working while trying to record this. I had to go and dig out my dad's old interface from like when I was a little child. I haven't seen this thing since I was like 11. And the 2 new ones aren't working. How does this happen? Okay, I'm back. I fixed it. That was really annoying. Okay, so the next thing to really pay attention to in the project, at this point we've got the lead arpeggios. This time now there's an 808 with no filter on it. So you know, it sounds a little bit different than the other one from before, which was like this. And then you've got, now there's different drums here. So instead of the ones from before, now there is, which goes with everything like this. So on top of the drums, obviously there's also a kick drum, which is going in time with the 808 for the purpose of a special kind of compression called sidechain compression, which basically means, I believe it's on this, Basically, the way a compressor works is when there's audio over a certain like a certain threshold, it'll start to like slowly curve the volume down. And I believe, yeah, in here, every time the kick goes off, it compresses that slightly to make the 808 feel like it's coming in even harder than it actually is. So that's just a nice little detail that I like. Well, it's a pretty common technique that people use. And then I guess the only other really notable thing in this section is probably one of my favorite tools to use. It's a sample-based, cloud-based instrument called Arcade, which basically has a ton of kits that you can shift into any key, and each key is assigned to a different sample. And obviously there's some controls here, and then all of the flat and sharps control a modifier, but I don't tend to use that much, so that's not important for right now. I tend to use this a lot for detailing on my tracks, just like small things, although it plays a pretty crucial role on this one, because they're pretty front and center, as, you know, just a little bit of filling it out. So in context, that sounds like... And then through the next section, I have a different one doing more percussive things. Same instrument, just different kit. The other thing about the next section is I've got a synth in here playing a bass. I'm going to unfreeze that real quick so we can take a look at it. So this is a bass preset I use a lot. I made it myself, but I have a few kind of signature things I go back to a lot. Basically, the way it works is you've got the waveforms here. There's an A and a B, just like the other synth I showed. You got the cutoff and all that. This one's running a little bit of distortion, a little bit of reverb, and some EQ stuff. And on its own, it sounds like that. Now, that's a sound I use in basically everything I do because I really love how it sounds. And yeah, that's it basically for that. And that's just kind of the verse section there before it goes right back into the chorus with one new addition, which is same synth, but now it's doing something totally different. It is basically, it's just a sine wave, which is one of the most basic waveforms with a lot of distortion on it. And then I'm running it through a reverb plugin along with some vinyl and an EQ, which I already kind of explained those. Basically, I'm just drowning this one in reverb, so it's really just spacey, if that makes sense. And that's kind of it for that section, except for at the very end, there's two little samples I've dragged in here for kind of a swell effect. So one of those is a glass sample backwards. So if I duplicated that and then hit, where is it? Process, reverse, you could see that that's what that sample sounds like forward, but in the actual context of the song, I have it like this. That's something I do a lot. I like using glass sounds a lot just because it's a really interesting texture that I really like. There's a different one right here, actually. So yeah, so then from there it goes into kind of a bridge section, which again, just the same bass, and then the arpeggios jumping from octave to octave. It goes from the lowest one to the highest one, and then stays in the medium octave before it kind of cuts out in the last little bit. And then that's basically it for this track. It just kind of repeats in the end. So yeah, that is that track showing off.
Don't try to make this work. Don't be my angel.
Okay, so for the sake of time, because I know if I try to break down every track on here, it's going to take forever. The other track I'm going to show off is Angel, because I think the whole process of it was really kind of interesting, because it's very different than the normal, at least for me. So when usually I would just start with an instrumental and just go from there, in this case, I was actually fortunate enough to be given the vocals first because Angel is actually a solo track by Max that he doesn't love it, he doesn't hate it, it's a thing that's there, but he's like, if you want the vocals, you can take it and run with it and do whatever you want. So the original is actually it's got like the same kind of themes to it, but it's very different because it sounds like this.
Should be on my own, living patiently, on my own till I feel peace again.
So yeah, totally different from what I ended up doing with it.
But are you down?
So obviously the first thing I kind of had to do was figure out what the chords were, because he didn't have them. He didn't have the chords. So I had to go in, and I swear to God, I sat there for like a solid half hour trying to sort out what the notes were in the chords, because as much as my pitch recognition is decent, it's not perfect. So yeah, chords go, you got F sharp minor, E, C sharp minor, B, and then I think it repeats exactly from there. And I just have that running on a simple little keys instrument. There's not really much to explain or show off there. Basically, these are the only controls I have over it, and this is just controlling reverb right now. And my honest answer is, I don't know what these do. They both control volume somehow. I wish I could tell you more. So yeah. From there, it starts off with just that, but then halfway through the intro you get a little snap, which is just a snap sound recorded and being played on every quarter. Yeah, it's being played on half notes. I knew that. I'm gonna pretend I knew that. It's been a while since I looked at this. So something kind of cool in this song is the little reverses in there. So what that is basically you take the first syllable from the vocals. So like, it's muted. That's why I can't hear it. So you take that little bit and you put a ton of reverb on it, and then you export it and then bring the audio back in and reverse it, and it'll sound like that. And it makes a really, really good transition sound. So I used that at the beginning too. It only takes up 2 beats, so my little trick to keep everything on beat still in the project is there's a single bar of 2/4 before switching back into 4/4. Just a little easy trick. Easiest way to do pickups in music software like that is doing that. So from there, the next section, it's the same bass as before, as you can see here. Actually, this is the sub that's layered with it, so the bass is actually right there, but it's the same bass though. And then you've got the snap, and then another arcade layer, this time sounding like this. Again, just kind of atmospheric layering.
Now you're texting all my best friends that I try to warn about. You're a player.
And then from here you have transition sound. I used this one in the other project too. What do you know? The volume's turned off for it. I'll be honest, this project is a little bit broken from where it was, but I'm showing off what I can. And then from here, the instrument changes to a different keys instrument. With the 808 layered, once again with a sidechaining kick, and then vocals, with the hi-hats coming in later here, and I had to repeat the vocals here because I like the little touch that added. I have that muted, that's fine. But yeah, so basically the process for this was really similar, except instead of sculpting a project and then giving it to somebody else for them to form the vocals over, it was kind of more like a studio session where you're shaping everything around what the vocalist is coming up with if they have a melody idea first. So yeah, really, there's not much else to show here. The whole project kind of is just like that. So I'll leave you with that for that one. So networking is a weird thing, because if you're the guy who just goes and DMs people and is like, hey bro, listen to my stuff, do you want to work? 99% of the time you're just kind of going to get ignored or blatantly shut down. More likely the first one. All the people I worked with on this project are people that I'm personally friends with or are friends of friends, as I stated earlier. So really getting these was a really easy thing for me. Really, I'd send it to a channel in our Discord server. If you don't know what Discord is, it's like Skype, but 1,000 times better. So I'd send it to a little, like, a chat room in our Discord server, and I'd be like, hey, does anybody want this? And for a lot of them, it was like, yeah, sure, I'll take this, or I know somebody who will take this. So having kind of connections like that is really nice. It makes my job a lot easier. And it really just means I can write whatever I want, and I can just kind of put it into that little space. If somebody wants it, there's a decent chance it might actually get done. Now, vocal mixing, I will be very upfront. Not very good at it. It's not my favorite thing to do. It's my least favorite part of the process, but it's really important now because during all this quarantine stuff, I also have school to deal with, and I have to watch my brother sometimes, and just all that stuff. I did not mix the entire album myself. There are 2 tracks on here that were mixed by lovely friends of mine. Shout out to Ross and Find Me, who mixed Re-Entry and Dancing with the Dead. Saved my goddamn life. I could not have handled all that myself. But I will show you some of the stuff I did mix and give an explanation on how that process works right now. Okay, so a little bit of honesty. A lot of the actual tracks from the EP, the mixing isn't that interesting to look at. But because I want to give a comprehensive view, I'm going to give a overview of the mixing of the Miko verse on the Iris remix that, when this comes out, would still probably be pretty new. Hasn't actually come out yet as of when I'm filming this. So yeah, just because with the EP, a lot of people would have, they would have done little bits of it before sending it to me, which I don't ask them to do. They just kind of do it. But I can show you this because I mixed it from the ground up. Now, obviously, once it's done, it all sounds very polished, sounding like this.
Know your insecurity.
I've been trying to see the light, no question about it. This ain't right the way you take a look at my soul manifesting like a parasite.
Now, obviously, that has a lot of polish on it. When I get it, it sounds nothing like that. Now, the best approach to this is starting, obviously, one layer at a time. It's never a good idea to throw a ton of in. So I would have started with basically just the instrumental, and I would have thrown in the lead, and the lead would not have had any of these on here.
Light, no question about it. This ain't right the way you take a look at my soul.
So obviously, it is, it's a thing. Now, something a lot of people have a lot of stigma around, but don't realize is actually really important, is auto-tune, tuning, whatever you want to call it. I don't have brand name auto-tune. That stuff's really expensive. But what a lot of people don't realize is that regardless of how good a singer is, to the human ear, even if something is slightly off of a normal pitch, something about it will sound off. So if you can do subtle tuning to improve how things sound, it goes a really, really long way.
Trying to see the light, no question about it. This ain't right the.
So that's immediately sounding so much better than it was a second ago when it was just a little bit off. So then from there, you want to do a lot of the EQ stuff and whatnot. Now I use an all-in-one plugin to do a lot of the basic stuff for that. Handles the low, the air, the presence, high cut, low cut, compression, de-esser, which what that does is it takes out a lot of the high frequencies in the sound. If you don't do that, that can sound extremely harsh, actually in a mix. So just with that and the tuning.
We got between your strength and know your insecurity.
I've been trying to see the light, no question about it. This ain't right the way you take a look at my.
So obviously that adds a lot of polish to it, and really all that's doing is just a little bit of compression, a little bit of EQ work, and yeah. As you can see, the compressor's there at about 50% of what it does here. Yeah, obviously, something like this, it's simultaneously easier and harder to understand what you're doing because everything's in one place, but also it's not as exact. It's not as comprehensive. But at the same time, if you know how to work it, it's a nice little tool. And then the only other thing I really did on that before starting with the layering was a bit of reverb, which, I mean, I've showed that earlier. Oh, shoot. Yeah, just a basic setting. Have the mix very low so it's not completely drowning it.
Trying to see the light, no question about it. This ain't right the way you take a look at my soul manifesting like a parasite.
And obviously the leads are on 2 different channels, so it's running all the same things, except this one doesn't have the extra stuff on it because I originally wasn't going to run everything through buses, and then I ended up having those 2 over there. So from there, obviously you start adding things in slowly, like the harmonies. Now the harmonies over here, I have them ghosted for the sake of not overflowing the project. This project is really hard on my computer. If I have everything running in real time, it doesn't go very well. But I can show you the effects here. Obviously, same thing with the all-in-one vocal thing and the reverb, and this one has the same kind of tuning on it, but the volume, it's not lowered on the main fader. It's actually lowered on the clip itself, which I can't show because it's frozen. But yeah, no, the volume is brought down on it for the sake of, like, you can do it like this. For the sake of balancing it, so together.
Trying to see the light, no question about it. This ain't right the way you take a look at my soul manifesting like.
So it's obviously a small thing, but it adds a lot to fill it out, add a lot of depth and whatnot. Harmonies and layering are a really, really important tool in terms of making music. It's really good to fill out a lot of dead space. Now, other things that we did in here, there was a track where he just absolutely destroyed his voice and just screamed into his mic right here for like a single lyric, and that's just running through, I believe, vinyl and distortion, but again, you can't see it. Yeah, you've got the same vocal plugin there, but now it's also got, oh, it's just isotope vinyl on there, so just to give it that kind of aged effect. So
why can't you change so it's easy to blame ya? I've been trying.
Again, small details, really nice. I did something similar over here when there's the little dropout, except it's a lot less intense.
Stop tempting me. You know I'm falling victim for the toxic type of energy.
So that's just a less intense version of the same vinyl plugin, just aging it a bit, kind of making it a bit thinner, pulling it back before going back in force. Pretty common-ish technique that people use, maybe not in that exact way, not in that exact execution, but that type of thing. Now the only other really interesting thing here would be this, because what that is doing is, if you open it up here, you've got wave tune, but you also have this, and what this is it's a pitch shifting plugin. It also does tuning stuff if you want it to, but right here you can see I'm pitch shifting it -12 to give it this kind of dark layer.
It's easy to blame you.
Which in context by itself it's a bit odd, but in context.
Why can't you change so it's easy to blame ya? I've been trying to
A
paint
little bit of darkness to it. I did the same thing up here again.
music's doing nothing except for bringing your thought back around.
So a lot of it's about subtle details within the mix, things that'll kind of elevate it to the next kind of level without being too upfront, too in your face. That's really what mixing is. It's just, how can I make this as full and interesting without it being overbearing into your face? And then that's kind of it for this section. I'm back. It's been like a week. It's been a week. I'm not really good at working on this. It's taken a long time. A lot of tech issues. That's fine. Okay, so the next part of the process for releasing a whole album, EP, whatever you're doing, would be mastering, which some people are bold enough to do themselves. I'm not one of those people. I'm not mastering my own stuff. That sounds like a terrible idea. So I sent it off to my friend Ross Rift from USF. and he's not done. He's still working on it. I don't actually have it yet. So a basic explanation of what mastering is basically making sure it sounds good across all systems. So you're not going to listen to it on one set of speakers or one pair of headphones and it sounds great, but the minute you listen on your cheap Walmart earbuds, it sounds really, really bad. And I'm going to be honest, it's going to sound really bad anyways if you're listening on cheap Walmart earbuds. But you know, as good as you can get it. So basically what that is going and listening on different systems, like, you know, car speakers, bad earbuds, good systems, and just making little tweaks with things like EQ, compression, or whatever on the overall mix, not on individual channels, to make sure everything comes across as balanced and full and good, and not, you know, flat on some systems and full on some systems, and like too wide in terms of like LNR panning and stuff like that. That's basically the whole process for that. And then the next thing you got to deal with is distribution, which is a whole different beast. Which, I say that, it's actually become pretty simple recently, and I'm going to show you the process of what it's like to distribute a piece of music, even though I don't actually have the music with me yet. But I can still show you, it's not that hard to show. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need if you're going to be distributing music is you're going to need a distributor. Now basically what they do is for a cut of what you're making, or alternatively for a fee, like a yearly fee or something, they will handle sending out your music to iTunes, Apple Music, Amazon, Deezer, all the big platforms, right? They basically take the spot of what a record label would do for you, except, you know, not a record label. So you're not getting gouged by a record label, I guess. I don't know. So I use a system called DistroKid, and basically it's pretty simple. You can see all of my releases here. You can see other things I'm getting money off of over here, and they make it really easy to view everything related to the track. I can do lyrics, I can sync the lyrics, you know, credits. So yeah, basically what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to upload, kind of like, you know, if you're putting something on YouTube or whatnot, and it'll bring you to this screen here where you can choose what services you want to be on. Now there's no extra cost for extra services, so obviously you don't really, you know, deselect Spotify or something. So then next thing you do is select the number of songs. I believe I'm releasing 7 songs, but I don't actually remember, so that's fine. In this case, you'd hit no if it has never been released before, but if it has, you'd hit yes. But we haven't, so obviously I'm already on Apple Music and Spotify, so it's already there, although it has the caps wrong on my name because the not is supposed to be in lowercase, but that's okay. So then you pick a release date. Let's say I want this out on June 19th. I don't know when this is coming out. I don't actually have the stuff. And then if you want to release at a custom time, you can choose what time you want to release here, according to Spotify time. This is for Spotify only. And you can also change the time sync. And then there's the pre-order and stuff. So obviously for record label, I have the collective I'm a part of here, Ugly Stupid Friends. Over here is where you could put the art or whatever you're doing. I say whatever you... It's where you put the art. So obviously I would go into like here, art, are you still there? And select this. And then there you go. You just put the album title in there. Are you still there? And now you can set the price of your album here. I don't think I've ever changed that, I'm gonna be honest. And then the language and the genres. I really hate this part. I don't know what genre I write, but since I'm not actually submitting anything right now, I'll just leave it there. So then obviously you just put in track name, say re-entry or whatever, and then you obviously have to put the featuring or whatever. And it's kind of picky about that too, but you know. And then you upload the file, and then you gotta go through all these things, including the credits, where you have to put your real name. I know plenty of people who don't. You're supposed to, though. Put your real name. And then, yeah, you gotta check, you know, is there explicit lyrics? Is this a radio edit? Is this an instrumental? And then for the preview of things, like... say, you know, if you're using the preview on iTunes, or alternatively, if you're using the song on like TikTok or Instagram Music, you can choose exactly when you want that to start. Although again, I don't actually have a song here, so I have no idea what that timestamp is. And so you go through that for all the songs. I'm just going to scroll past all that. And then you get to the bottom where you can choose these kind of options. This allows you to put your stuff on Instagram and Facebook. So, like Instagram Music and whatever. So the next one here is YouTube Money, which basically is automatic content ID. If somebody uses your music, you can basically claim the revenue on the video, which is a little obnoxious if you're a creator and it's being used with fair use, but it's a thing. I don't pay for it because that's money. They also take 20%, so no thanks. But yeah, as you can see, they're very, very over the top about this. So yeah, I don't bother. Then there's also the store maximizer, which is if they ever add new stores, they'll automatically add it for you. Shazam and Siri recognition, so like it'll guarantee that if your music is played somewhere and somebody tries to Shazam it, it's automatically picked up. And this is just if your membership lapses, they'll keep it up for you. Yeah, that's it really. That's all I got. From there, you just have to select all these and then hit done. Except I can't do that right now, obviously, because obvious reasons. But yeah, that's distribution. From there, you wait a few days for it to process, and then you just wait for your release date and it'll come out. It's as simple as that. It's become extremely easy to work without a record label. And I'd honestly, for a small artist, recommend this if you're ready to be putting your stuff on platforms. I think it's probably one of the best systems out there for this type of thing. So yeah. So yeah, that's basically the entire process of making, mixing, mastering, and releasing a project. Obviously, there are some other things like the video aspect of things or the making the art, but honestly, those are all things I learned from my communications technology class in school. So I feel like that stuff, I wouldn't say it's like super easy to learn, but there's definitely places you can learn it that are going to teach you miles better than me. This was just really an overview of how everything worked, just the basics, but not basic, in-depth still. For those of you who don't know, this was actually a final project for me for my regional arts class in high school. So yeah, that's why I was very much trying to be to the point and precise about all this. But if you did like this, if you ever want to see more stuff like this again, I probably won't do it because it's a lot of work. But if you ever do want to see stuff like this again, let me know, comment, whatever. Go stream the EP. I worked really, really hard on it. And I really hope you guys like it. And other than that, that's it for me. Thank you for watching if you watched all the way through, although I know most of you probably didn't. This is very, very long and kind of boring if you're not into this stuff. But that's okay. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you're doing fantastic. Have a good night.